There's something pretty interesting I've noticed after many years of watching how people talk about money. A lot of people look at someone else's life and immediately think they must be richer than me. Bigger house, newer car, more vacations. But there's one question that almost nobody asks. It's not how much money they have. It's this: how many financial obligations are they tied to every single month? I've met people who look incredibly successful. High income, a lifestyle that looks impressive from the outside. But what's interesting is that many of them actually live with more financial stress than people who earn less than they do. Not because they make too little money, but because their lifestyle requires a lot of money just to keep running. And when you start looking at money this way, something very strange happens. You begin to realize something. Some people look wealthy, but they're actually stuck. And some people look completely ordinary, but they have a kind of wealth that very few people understand. A kind of wealth that's quiet, but incredibly powerful. Today, that's what I want to talk about. Not a way to get rich fast, not some secret trick to making money, but a shift in how you look at money that might completely change how you see your position in the financial game. And the interesting part is this: a lot of people are actually in a much better position than they think. Main idea: one, financial freedom doesn't start with how much money you have. It starts with what you no longer have to pay. After years of watching people's financial behavior, I notice something that feels a little paradoxical. When people talk about wealth, most of them picture a big number, a big bank account, a big asset, a big income. But in real life, the thing that affects someone's financial experience the most isn't how much money they have. It's how much money they're required to send out every month. Most people don't realize that money moves in two directions. One direction is money coming in, but the other direction, often the more important one, is money going out. And here's the interesting part: some of that outgoing money is completely optional. You choose to eat out. You choose to travel, you choose to buy something you enjoy, but there are other payments you don't really get to choose anymore. They show up every single month, whether you want them to or not, whether that month is good or bad, whether work is going well or not. And when enough of those obligations stack up, something quietly starts to change in your life. You start thinking differently. You start feeling like you have to keep your current job. You start feeling like you have to maintain a certain level of income. Not because you want to, but because your life needs that income just to keep functioning. And this is where something interesting appears. There are people who look completely ordinary, but their lives are surprisingly light. Not because they're rich, but because they don't have to send out a huge portion of their money every month. And when that happens, a different kind of freedom starts to appear. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's incredibly valuable. It's the ability to say, I don't have to do this just for the money. It's the ability to walk away from environments that don't fit you. It's the ability to stay calm when something unexpected happens. And the interesting thing is, this kind of freedom usually shows up before big wealth appears, not after. Main idea 2. Many people who look wealthy are actually financially fragile. There's something else I noticed after years of observing personal finances. A lot of people we assume are doing great financially are actually living inside a very tight financial system. From the outside, everything looks perfect. Beautiful house, nice car, regular vacations. But what most people don't notice is that these things often come with something else. A lot of long-term financial obligations. And when those obligations pile up, something strange happens. A person's income might be very high, but their flexibility in life becomes very low. I've met people who make a lot of money, but they can't take a few months off work, change career direction, slow down their schedule, or try something new. Not because they lack ability, but because their life requires constant income to keep everything running. And here's the interesting part. The more things you have to maintain, the harder it becomes to change anything. An expensive lifestyle often comes with a very quiet kind of pressure. Pressure to keep everything running. Pressure to keep earning. Pressure to maintain the image you've built. And when you look at it from that perspective, you start noticing something very different. Some people don't look particularly impressive, but their lives are extremely stable. Their costs are reasonable. Their financial pressure is low. If their income drops for a while, they're still okay. If something unexpected happens, they can still handle it. They don't have to keep a giant financial machine running. And interestingly, that kind of stability is often more valuable than looking rich, because in real financial life, what matters isn't how fast you can run. What matters is how long you can keep moving without burning out. Main idea 3. Your cost of living quietly determines how fast you build wealth. After years of watching how people build their finances, I realized something very few people talk about. Many people believe wealth depends mostly on income. Higher income should make it easier to accumulate money. That sounds logical, but the reality is much more complicated. Two people can earn the exact same income and still build wealth at completely different speeds, not because they invest differently, but because their cost of living is different. Most people don't realize that living expenses have a very interesting characteristic. They tend to creep upward slowly over time, not through one big decision, not through a dramatic lifestyle change, just through small things, a new subscription, a slightly nicer service, a new spending habit. Each one seems small, but when they stack together, they create a completely different level of spending. And when your baseline cost of living rises, everything else in your financial life changes too. Your emergency fund has to be bigger. Your income pressure becomes higher. The timeline to financial freedom gets longer. Meanwhile, people who keep their lifestyle costs reasonable often have a powerful advantage. They don't need extremely high income to move forward. With steady earnings and basic financial discipline, they can still build wealth consistently. And over time, that consistency starts creating a gap, not after 1 year, not after 2 years, but after 10 years or 20 years. The difference becomes very clear. Interestingly, many people think living simply means they're missing out, but sometimes the opposite is true. A lifestyle with reasonable costs often gives you two things that even large amounts of money can't always provide: stability and time. And in the long-term game of money, those two things are often far more powerful than fast progress that isn't sustainable. Main idea 4. Your financial margin is what actually creates real power. There's something I've noticed after looking at the finances of many different people. Two people can earn the exact same salary, but their financial experience can feel completely different. One person constantly feels stressed. The other feels relatively relaxed. What's interesting is that the difference usually isn't their income. It comes down to something much simpler: what's left over after the essential expenses are paid. Most people don't realize that income is only one part of the picture. The more important question is, after everything necessary has been paid, how much is left? I've seen a very common situation. Someone earns a solid income, but almost all of it is already spoken for. Housing payments, car payments, services and subscriptions, fixed living costs. By the end of the month, there's almost no room left. And when that room gets close to zero, something predictable starts to happen. Even a small disruption can create a lot of pressure: an unexpected expense, a slightly lower income month, a change in work. Any of those things can suddenly make life feel stressful. Meanwhile, there are people whose income may not look particularly impressive, but they always maintain a clear margin after their basic needs are covered. That margin can go toward saving, investing, or simply creating peace of mind. And what's interesting is that financial margin gives you more options than most people realize. When you have margin, you can wait for a better opportunity. You can take time to learn a new skill. You can experiment with a different direction. You're not forced to make rushed decisions just because of money pressure, and most people don't notice that in many cases. Freedom in decision-making matters far more than absolute income. The person who earns the most money isn't always the one with the most options. Often, the person with consistent financial margin is the one who actually has the most flexibility. Main idea 5. When financial pressure decreases, the way you make decisions changes. There's another interesting pattern I've noticed after watching people's money behavior over many years. When someone constantly lives under financial pressure, their decisions tend to be driven by urgency. They have rent to pay. They have loans to cover. They need to maintain a steady income. In that state, most decisions revolve around one goal: solve the problem right now. Take the first job available, accept the quickest deal, prioritize short-term cash over everything else. And honestly, that's completely understandable. When financial pressure is high, our brains naturally focus on the present instead of the future. But when that pressure decreases, something very noticeable begins to happen. People start thinking more long-term. They consider more options. They can turn down opportunities that aren't a good fit. And interestingly, the best financial decisions usually happen in this state. Not when we're panicking, not when we're running out of money, but when we have enough space to think clearly. After years of observing this, I realized something surprisingly simple. People who build stable finances are rarely the ones making brilliant, genius-level decisions. More often, they're simply people who have the conditions to make decisions calmly. They're not forced to act immediately. They don't have to accept every opportunity that appears. They have time to think. And in the world of personal finance, that's actually a huge advantage. After many years of watching how people talk about money and live with money, I've realized something pretty clear. Real wealth isn't always easy to see. It doesn't always show up in big things. Not in a brand new car. Not in a huge house. Not in impressive numbers. Sometimes wealth shows up in very ordinary things: a life with reasonable expenses, a steady financial margin, an emergency fund that can handle unexpected problems, and most importantly, a life where your income isn't tied down by too many financial obligations. When that happens, you gain something that even many high-income people still don't have: flexibility. You can change direction when you need to. You can slow down when you need to. You can think long-term instead of constantly solving short-term problems. And interestingly, the path to sustainable wealth usually begins very quietly. No dramatic breakthroughs, just small decisions made in the right direction, repeated over many years. If you're building your life that way, you might not feel like you're moving very fast, but many times, you're actually on a much more stable path than you realize. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos about money psychology and financial behavior, because sometimes just understanding money a little differently can change your financial life more than you expect.